Queen Mastari Vex straightened on her throne of obsidian-veined crystal, her crest frills flaring subtly as the Imperial Council's chamber fell into weighted silence. "The motion carries," she intoned, her voice a resonant command that echoed off the vaulted arches. "The Vekari Imperium binds itself to the human Commonwealth in alliance, securing the volatile border sectors against the Krell incursions. Let the proclamation be etched in the annals." The councillors shifted, their iridescent scales catching the lumen globe's glow, some with nods of grim approval, others with mandibles clicking in dissent. Lord Varric Astan, his robes heavy with ancestral sigils, rose first among the conservatives, but Mastari's gaze pinned him before he could speak. The frontier reports had been dire, Krell raiders shredding supply lines, outposts falling silent. This human pact, brokered in desperation, promised their peculiar vessels and endless manpower streams. She would not falter now. As the chamber emptied in ordered procession, Mustari descended the dais, her honor guard's armored footfalls a rhythmic escort. In her private sanctum, shielded by force veils humming with privacy wards, she activated the console with a talon tap. Dossiers on the human envoy, Elias Thorne, and all Commonwealth records, Priority Alpha. Discreet channels only. Her chief intelligence officer, Captain Lyra, materialized via hollow projection, her frills quivering with efficiency. "Majesty, the files are compiling." Thorne arrives within the cycle, presented as ceremonial groom and minor consort. Publicly unremarkable, diplomat from their fringe worlds, versed in protocol but no military mark. Mastari's eyes narrowed, scanning the initial feeds flickering to life. Human physiology. Soft-skinned, no natural armor, endurance metrics laughably variable. Yet their ships had held the Krell at bay in simulations her analysts couldn't replicate. "Unremarkable," she echoed, tasting the word. "And yet they volunteer this thorn for the betrothal ritual? Ensure every whisper from their delegation reaches me. Dismiss nothing." Lyra's projection bowed out, leaving Mustari to pace the sanctum's length, her claws scoring faint lines in the polished floor. Protocol demanded she accept this human at court, for appearances, for the treaty's ink to dry before the Krell scented weakness. But ancient interdictions loomed, Varric's faction ever eager to invoke them. She was Vekari sovereign, blood of the first crest. No soft-fleshed outsider would unmake her rule. The grand atrium thrummed with anticipation. 2 cycles later, its colossal pillars draped in alliance banners, Vekari gold entwined with crude human helixes. Mustari stood at the ritual dais, her regalia a cascade of jeweled scales as the procession heralded the arrival. Human delegates in stiff tunics flanked a lone figure, Elias Thorne, striding forward without the hunch of lesser envoys. He was taller than dossiers suggested, his frame lean yet unyielding, dark hair cropped short, eyes steady under the chamber's scrutiny. No crest, no frills, just pale skin marked by faint scars, clad in a hybrid robe blending Commonwealth weave with Vekari embroidery. He halted precisely at the protocol line, inclining his head in the exact angle of respect, neither servile nor defiant. "The envoy Elias Thorne of the human Commonwealth," the herald boomed, offered in betrothal to seal the pact. Mastari regarded him coolly, her voice carrying like polished steel. "You stand before the Imperium's heart, human. The ritual binds us in name and necessity. Do you comprehend its weight?" Elias met her gaze without flinching, his tone even, carrying a faint accent that twisted Vekari phonemes into something fluid. "I do, Majesty. The Commonwealth entrusts me to honor the alliance, as consort and envoy. My station is yours to assign." Murmurs rippled through the court, Varric's cluster exchanging glances, Lady Sierra Knoll's delegation from the neighboring Thalor Concord watching with predatory poise. Mastari extended a clawed hand, the ritual chalice hovering between them on anti-grav. "Then drink, and let the stars witness." He lifted the vessel smoothly, sipping the binding nectar without hesitation, his throat working steadily, no grimace at its acrid bite, no pause for translation implants to falter. Mustari followed, the shared vow sealing public consent. "Elias Thorne holds station at court," she proclaimed. "Attend me in chambers of state. The alliance proceeds." As the assembly dispersed into formal receptions, Mustari retreated to her strategy vault, Elias trailing at the mandated 2 paces. Guards sealed the doors and she turned, frills half unfurled in private assessment. Speak plainly, human. Your dossiers claim logistics expertise beneath the diplomat's veil. Why conceal it? Elias paused, hands clasped behind him. Posture impeccable. Concealment serves the treaty, Majesty. Publicly, I'm ceremonial, keeps tensions low. Privately, if border logistics strain your lines, I've coordinated worse under fire. Humans adapt. It's our way. She circled him slowly, noting the steady pulse at his neck. No scent of fear sweat. Dismissive reports labeled humans fragile, yet here he stood, parsing her sub-frill tones without aid. Adaptation, a vague virtue. My analysts predict your fleets falter in prolonged engagements. A faint smile tugged his lips. Not mockery, but quiet confidence. We've held sectors your probes couldn't map, Majesty. Not superiority, just persistence. Show me your manifests and I'll integrate them. Intrigue stirred beneath her propriety. Varric's motion arrived via courier mid-conclave that eve. A crystal tablet thrust into the council feed. Ancient Interdiction 4-7. Alpha invokes purity of crest blood. No off-world consort may claim station without trial of worth. The human taints succession. The chamber ignited, councilors' crests blazing, Barrick's voice thundering from his podium. Frontiers burn while we debase the throne. Krell laugh at this farce. Mustari silenced them with a raised talon. Her presence a gravitational force. Feeds from the border flickered, outposts overrun, supply convoys vaporized. Escalation loomed if the pact fractured now. The interdiction requires proof of unworthiness, she countered, voice unyielding. Thorn stands accredited by ritual. Challenge him in open forum if you dare, Lord Varric, but the alliance holds. Delay invites invasion. Varric's mandibles ground, eyes flicking to Sarah's poised form, but he subsided with a bow masking fury. Private channels buzzed, Thalor spies probing weaknesses. Krell fleets massing. Mustari dismissed the council, summoning Elias to her war map hololith. The projection sprawled, a glittering frontier web of contested sectors, red icons pulsing with Krell advances. Your persistence, human, she said. Frills taut. Prove it. Our rote projections fail here. Convoy routes collapse under raider swarms. Elias leaned in, eyes tracing patterns her strategists had missed. A nexus of asteroid drifts, human patterned blockades. See this spiral? Krell favor linear thrusts. Humans don't. Reroute via the debris lanes. Your fast scouts escort. Our bulk haulers follow. Multitask the signals. Faint weakness on primary vectors while packing endurance loads triple your norms. She watched him gesture, connecting supply metrics to Vekari sensor grids in seconds, his fingers dancing across unfamiliar controls. No lecture, just seamless integration, adapting her system's quirks as if born to it. Her analysts took thrice as long for half the insight. Captain Lyra's update chimed, dossiers updated, Majesty. Human Thorn. Field Engineer. Elite Officer. Logged 7-2, Cyclops without rotation. Impossible by our fatigue models. Mustari's crest twitched, a crack in her dismissal. Implement the routes. She ordered her staff, then to Elias. You conceal depths consort. Why feign the minor envoy? He straightened, humble shrug, unmarred by pride. Treaties need faces, Majesty. I'm just the one who keeps the wheels turning. Your Imperium's precision is formidable. We layer persistence atop it. Barrick's faction seethed in the antechambers, whispers of further motions brewing, but the map shifted. Projections stabilizing for the first time in cycles. Mustari felt the weight lift fractionally, her gaze lingering on the human. Protocol cracked just enough. Respect flickered, unbidden. As night veils dimmed the palace, a courier burst in, urgent. Krell Vanguard breaching Sector Prime. Alliance tested now, she said, turning to him. Stand ready. Elias nodded, already pulling manifests.
Together, Majesty. We've only begun.
In that vaulted hush, amid swirling hollows, the sovereign glimpsed not inferiority, but an equal thread in the Imperium's fraying tapestry. The court would test them, Varric's interdictions, Sarah's shadows. But for this breath, Queen Mustari Vax strode from the shuttle's ramp onto the Citadel's frost-rimmed parapet, her cloaks snapping in the border wind like edicts unrolled. Foreign envoys from the neighboring thalassocracies flanked the procession, Lady Sarah Knoll among them, her iridescent scales gleaming with calculated poise. while Vicari guards in powered harnesses scanned the jagged horizon. Provisional clauses by dusk, Mysteri commanded her protocol master. No delays. Honor the treaty's ink. The great hall thrummed with restrained tension, its vaulted dome etched with stellar cartouches that pulsed faint light. Elias Thorne, her human consort in name if not yet in deed, stood at her right during the ceremony, his formal sash draped just so across broad shoulders. He inclined his head to the envoys as protocol demanded, murmuring the ritual affirmations in flawless Vicari, words that rolled from his throat without the halting cadence most off-worlders mangled. Mysteri noted it absently, her focus on the holothic treaty display blooming at the chamber's heart, shimmering overlays of trade routes, resource allocations and border demarcations, provisional clauses hovering like fragile mandates. As Sarah's envoy droned the ratification phrases, Elias's gaze sharpened on a peripheral projection, a logistical overlay for supply convoys threading the Veilspine passes. His fingers twitched subtly at his side, not in nerves, but calculation. Leaning fractionally toward Mysteri, he whispered, "Majesty, the Eastern Spur, grid reference 47 Omega. It bisects the old seismic fault line from the 97 rupture. Current mapping routes the primary grain hauler straight through unstable strata." She stiffened, mandibles clicking once in irritation. Fault lines, the cartographers had certified those paths moons ago, cross-referenced against Imperium archives. Yet his tone held no boast, only quiet certainty, as if spotting such a flaw were as natural as breathing. The envoys paused, Syra's multifaceted eyes narrowing toward the interruption. Mysteri raised a gauntleted hand, silencing the chamber. "Cartographers," she intoned, her voice a silken blade, "verify the human's observation. Overlay seismic data from the rupture event, now." Her chief mapper, a wiry Vicari named Lyrak, with quivering antennae, scuttled forward, mandibles agape in protocol breach. "Sovereign, the projections are ratified. Verify," Mysteri repeated, her compound eyes locking on him until he bowed low. The hololith flickered, layers peeling back under frantic inputs. Gasps rippled through the Vicari attendants as the fault line glowed crimson, intersecting the spur precisely. Lyrak's crest flattened in shock. Impossible. The calibration drifted by 0.3 arc minutes. Convoys would fracture the pass within a cycle. Mysteri's inner lids flickered, a rare tell of disequilibrium. Her own archives had deemed humans impulsive traders, not navigators of such precision. This Elias, with his unassuming frame and courtly bow, had pierced a veil her experts had woven tight. Sarah leaned forward, her voice a hiss of feigned concern. "A fortuitous catch, Sovereign. Yet does it not underscore the perils of alien meddling in sacred logistics? It underscores vigilance," Mysteri countered, propriety holding like armored plating even as curiosity cracked beneath. She turned to Elias, voice pitched for his ears alone amid the murmurs. "You saw this amid ceremony." "How?" "Patterns, Majesty. Bolts echo and convoy echoes. Vibration logs from your public manifests matched the seismic echoes I'd read in transit briefings." He met her gaze steadily, no pride swelling his chest, just the humility of one stating the obvious. The realization settled in her like a shifting throne. What her Vicari saw as rote verification, this human layered across domains without effort. She gestured to Lyrak. "Grant the consort supervised access to the logistical vaults. Substantiate the full correction chain. Envoys, we reconvene at seal." As the chamber emptied into shadowed corridors, pamphlets fluttered from a side archway. Crude print sheets bearing Lord Varikistan's seal, decrying human taint on Vicari soil, and invoking the Third Edict's purity clauses. Shouts erupted from the garrison antechamber beyond, armored boots clanging, a Vicari sergeant's roar of traitors to the bloodline. A scuffle broke out, fists and harness servos whining as loyalists dragged pamphlet sowers into custody, the air thick with the acrid tang of singed loyalty oaths. Mysteri's guards surged forward, but she held position, her presence a bastion. From the vault's shadowed maw, Elias emerged moments later, flanked by Lyrak and two archivists, a data slate clutched in his hand. "Confirmed, Majesty. 3 more spurs compromised, reroutes viable via secondary coals, shaving 12% transit risk." Syra's envoy smirked from the sidelines. Varric's words stir the ranks. "The garrison fractures. How fares your equal now?" Mystari's mandibles set firm, strength unyielding as the citadel stone. Varek's gambit tested not just loyalty, but her resolve to bind this alliance amid intrigue's coils. She signaled her captain, heighten patrols, double the perimeter sweeps, seal the lower barracks, isolate the instigators for my judgment. Then, to Elias, her tone threading command with an uncharacteristic warmth, "You will have a detail. 4 of my blades no less." The treaty proceeds. Appearances at court will not suffice alone. Elias nodded, accepting the escort without protest, his eyes already scanning the hall's tactical hollows for unseen vectors. Lirak hovered nearby, antennae twitching in reluctant awe. "Human, your pattern sense rivals the oracle webs. We Vekari compute layers. You weave them." As the detail formed around him, stoic Vekari warriors exchanging wary glances with their charge, Mustari watched the scuffle quelled, Varek's pamphlets trampled underfoot. The envoys reconvened under her watchful gaze, provisional clauses sealing with a resonant chime. Yet in the quiet aftermath, as Elias sketched rapid reroute amendments beside her throne, she felt the tapestry shift. This human's quiet competence wove not as threat, but reinforcement, humble threads binding frayed edges. Sarah departed with a lingering glance, her scales dimming in the exit light, while Lirak murmured to aides of researching human navigational lore. Mustara leaned closer to Elias amid the fading echoes. "Your correction saves convoys, consort, but Varek's fire spreads. What patterns do you see in his pamphlets?" He traced a finger over the crumpled sheet, connecting ink flourishes to garrison rotations. "Coded drops. 3 more sites implied. Patrols there first." His suggestion flowed seamless, multitasking the archive slate and intrigue alike, endurance unflagging after hours of ceremony. She signaled assent, a personal accord blooming amid protocol's cracks. The citadel held, loyalty tested and tempered, but the greater court awaited. Varik's counsel barbs, Sayria's shadowed bids. Elias's gaze met hers, steady partnership unspoken. The pact endured, yet demanded more than seals. It craved their combined weave to outlast the storm. Lord Varikistan leaned forward in the shadowed vault of the High Council chamber, his crest frills flaring like accusatory blades. "An honorary rank for the human? Your radiance, the Codex Interdictum forbids it. Bloodlines untempered by Vekari trial invite fracture. Elias Thorn is consort in name only. To cloak him in our legion's mantle mocks the ancestors." Queen Mustari Vek sat enthroned at the chamber's apex, her armored pauldrons catching the lumen globe's cold gleam, posture unyielding as frontier stone. The council's murmurs rippled like wind through dry grass. 20 voices, each a noble house's edge, testing her resolve post-citadel. Elias stood at her right, silent in his treaty silks, face a mask of deferent calm that irked her still. Useful, yes, but no warrior born of her world's crucibles. She raised a gauntleted hand, silencing the tide. "The Codex bends to necessity, Lord Varek. Frontier sieges bleed our supply lines. Thorn's accord stabilizes them. Honorary tribune, provisional, field limited. Debate yields to deed." Varek's eyes narrowed, mandibles clicking softly. "Deed? He has none proven radiance. A diplomat's tongue, not a tactician's claw. Grant this, and houses whisper of dilution, purity eroded for alien novelty." Lady Ilara Voss, her progressive flank, countered swiftly. "Novelty secured the Citadel's vaults last eve. Whispers fade before victories, my lord." Murmurs shifted, but Varek's faction held firm, citing archaic clauses on consort impotence. Mustari felt the propriety's weight, formal lines cracking under the pact's raw necessity. Elias's presence tugged at her periphery, steady, uncomplaining, yet she dismissed it as trained poise, not prowess. The vote teetered when heralds interrupted, defense inspection underway at the outer bastions per her prior decree. "Adjourned to observation," Mustari commanded, rising. The council filed into the fortified gallery overlooking the sprawl, a vast drill yard where Vekari legions maneuvered siege engines under stormy skies, supply convoys threading like veins toward mock frontiers. From the gallery's railing, Mustari tracked the exercise, third cohort simulating a pincer breach, reinforcements routed from secondary depots. Elias, granted observer status, moved to the comms dais without invitation, his fingers dancing over holographic relays. She watched, brow crest subtly twitching. What presumption? Captain Lirak, the cohort's dour commander, barked coordinates into the net. Delta, 7 convoy, hold primary artery, reinforce east flank. Elias interjected softly, voice threading the channel like a needle. Captain, your primary's exposed. Terrain scans show microfractures in the ridge. Convoy mass will trigger slides within the hour. Reroute via the old aqueduct bed. It's dry, stable, gains you parity. Lirak stiffened, frills rattling. Human, this is Vicari drill. Aqueducts uncharted for heavies. Logistics rote holds. Elias didn't argue, pulling up multi-layered overlays. Topo, weather, load manifests, juggling them mid-air with fluid taps. See the pattern. Wind shear here amplifies vibration. Your rote assumes clear skies. Aqueduct silt compacts under weight. I've run sims on similar earthworks. Shaves 12 minutes. Averts cascade delay. Mustari leaned closer to the viewport, pulse quickening despite herself. Lirak hesitated, then queried his aides. Confirmations flickered. By the voids, he's right. Reroute initiated. Below, convoys pivoted seamlessly. Heavies thundering into the shadowed trough without hitch. Reinforcements slammed into position on time, mock siege crumbling under unified fire. Legions saluted crisply, but captains exchanged glances, frills half lowered in unease, half intrigued. Varik hissed beside her, luck, or pre-briefed data. No Vicari spots that cross domain weave unaided. She ignored him, signaling Elias to the private lift. The descent hummed, sealing them in oiled silence. Explain your method, Tribune Provisional, she said, voice edged with command, propriety veiling curiosity. Elias met her gaze evenly, no boast in his stance. Just connecting dots, your radiance. Your topo scans are gold standard, better than our old field kits, but they layer siloed. Weather feeds predict shear. Manifests show load harmonics. Humans, we drill multitasking in chaos, from disaster relief to ops. Aqueduct jumped out as the fit. Private review chamber. Stark holotable, no courtiers. She activated replays. Probing, you overrode a captain mid-drill. Risk, offered data, not orders. He chose. His tone stayed level. Hands gesturing minimally. Humble mechanic, not hero. Pattern recognition, he called it casually, as if all his kind saw supply veins pulsing across fractured earth. She tested him. Simulate variance. Storm doubles. He rebuilt the hollow in seconds, adapting routes on the fly. Endurance unflagging as iterations piled. The carriades would flag after 3. He chained 10, spotting efficiencies she'd missed in briefings. Amazement stirred, unbidden. Dismissed humans as soft envoys, yet here competence bloomed, unarrogant, collaborative. Her own strengths, political weave, ritual command complemented this raw ingenuity. Awe tugged. Her pride balked at needing it. Impressive, she conceded, formality cracking into accord. Your assessment now. Frontier defense writ large. Elias nodded, pulling frontier holos, Vicari expanse, pirate nexuses gnawing edges. Your legions excel in direct assault, unmatched ferocity. But supply choke points repeat. Ridges, storms, raiders hitting arteries. Proposed nodal depots. Redundant, modular. Humans managed similar in our wars. Endurance halls keep them stocked. Adaptability shifts loads. Pair with your shock troops. Raiders break on hybrid walls. She traced his overlays, mind racing. Creative, yes. Novel loops evading rote blockades. Viable. Draft for council tomorrow. Partnership flickered. Personal now. His humility eased her guard, revealing mutual arcs. Her isolation thawing. His seclusion proving worth. Alarms chimed. State docking alert. Lady Sarah Knowles' shuttle. Unannounced from the neighboring Thalor Concord. Mustari strode to the arrival dais. Elias at flank. Council reconvening in her wake. Sarah descended the ramp in resplendent void silk, her lithe form and iridescent scales screaming ambition. Your radiance, Sarah purred, bowing low but eyes gleaming. Tidings of unrest reach Thalor. Citadel tremors, council rifts. My Concord offers stability. Alliance through me. Pure Vicari blood, no foreign dilutions. Invoke succession edicts. Reconsider this, ceremonial bond. Varik's frills perked visibly, His faction leaned in. Mustari felt the intrigue coil, Sarah exploiting Varric's barbs, foreign leverage prying at fractures. Elias shifted minutely, reading the room's subtext as she did, but silent. "Generous, Lady Sarah," Mustari replied, voice steel-veined ice. "Yet my pact stands, sealed in deed, not doubt. Dalor's stability reeks of interference. Our envoys will convey rebuff. Depart, and carry word. Vekari sovereignty yields no ground." Sarah's mandibles parted in surprise, scales paling. "But the Codex bends to my will." Mustari gestured dismissal. Guards escorted Sarah back, her shuttle lifting amid tense silence. Varric scowled, outmaneuvered. Progressives nodded approval. Alone with Elias in the withdrawing hall, Mustari turned. You read her ploy unspoken. Social dynamics, tone, posture. Humans navigate courts by subtext too. His smile was faint, connecting without claim. She signaled assent, the weave tightening. His field fixed, the first thread proving more than ceremony. Council barbs dulled, Syri repelled, yet storms gathered. Their partnership, humble human ingenuity meshed with her regal command, promised to outlast them. Elias's gaze held steady, unspoken alliance deepening amid protocol's fractures. The Imperium endured, demanding their combined proof. Queen Mustari's voice rang clear across the grand balcony, the words of unity etched in the ancient cadences of Vekari law. By the weave of stars and blood, this alliance fortifies our frontiers against the void's encroaching shadows. The crowd below, merchants, soldiers, envoys from fringe worlds, erupted in measured acclaim, their frills quivering in ritual approval. She felt the weight of it all, the Imperium's fragile balance perched on her decree. A sharp crack split the air, not thunder but projectile fire. Mustari's primary guard lurched sideways, his carapace splintering as a bolt grazed his shoulder. Chaos bloomed, screams from the throng, courtiers scattering like disrupted hive drones. Her gaze snapped to the source, a shadowed alcove amid the upper tiers, where a cloaked figure braced a sleek rail disruptor, its barrel trained on her chest for the killing shot. Elias Thorne moved first, stationed as her ceremonial shadow, sword unbloodied and robes pristine. He had lingered at the balcony's edge like an ornamental statue. Now he surged forward, not with the ponderous charge of Vekari warriors, but a fluid, predatory coil. His human frame, slender by galactic measure, unarmored save for treaty silks, launched him across 10 paces in a heartbeat. The attacker pivoted, firing wildly, the bolt scorched stone where Mustari had stood instants before. Elias drove his shoulder into the assassin's midriff, a brutal tackler's pivot that folded the figure against the balustrade. The disruptor clattered free, skittering toward the abyss. The attacker, Vekari, by the chitin gleam under his hood, thrashed with vibro daggers slashing for Elias's throat. Elias twisted, pinning one arm while his free hand clamped the wrist of the other, leveraging body weight with mechanical precision. A knee jammed into the assassin's spine. A sharp elbow strike to the neck ridge cracked exoskeleton. The figure went limp, gasping, as Elias wrenched the daggers away and bound the assailant's limbs with torn strips from his own ceremonial sash. Mustari's security swarm descended, stunners humming, but Elias had ended it. He rose, breathing steady, not a mark on him beyond a singed sleeve. His eyes met hers across the melee, calm, assessing. No triumph in them, only readiness. Below, the crowd's panic curdled into stunned silence. Above, Lord Varric Astan's frills flared in rigid shot from his council perch, while Lady Sarah Knoll clutched her dais, her compound eyes wide. "Secure the perimeter," Mustari commanded, her voice a whip crack that cut through the din. "Protocol be damned." She strode to Elias's side, her taloned hand gesturing sharply. "Neutralize all alcoves. Evacuate the non-essentials." Her personal guard hauled the assassin away, but she signaled Elias to remain close, his presence now no mere formality. The balcony cleared in orchestrated haste, courtiers funneled to antechambers as alarms wailed empire-wide. Within the hour, the high sanctum convened, an emergency session ringed by holographic threat maps flickering like dying stars. Martial law proposals scrolled across the central hololith, curfews on fringe ports, armory lockdowns, drone swarms over descent hubs. Varric Astan stood foremost among the counselors, his voice gravel-thick with urgency. "Sovereign, the bolt traces to unregistered factional caches. Purity demands iron rule. Seal the hives, purge the tainted shipments before this unravels the weave. Mustari's throne loomed at the chamber's apex, its carapace inlays pulsing with her vital signs. She felt the fractures, Varik's conservatives baying for control, Sairia's envoys whispering of border vulnerabilities, her own succession shadowed by the treaty's fragility. Elias stood at her right, silent sentinel, his human posture impeccable amid the Vekari sprawl. No one had dismissed him. His intervention had bought that much. Agreed on vigilance, she intoned, her frills extending in measured authority. But precision over panic. Open all factional armament manifests to my security staff. Full audit, from core forges to outer rim depots. Trace the disruptor's alloy signature. No shipment evades scrutiny. Her gaze swept the chamber, lingering on Varric's taut mandibles. Lord Astan, your houses lead the manifests. Expect my auditors by dawn shift. Murmurs rippled. Obedience laced with resentment. Sarah leaned forward, her silks whispering. A wise stroke, Sovereign. Yet the attack's audacity suggests deeper rot. Might external hands guide it? Mustari ignored the barb, turning publicly to her consort. Elias Thorne, your vigilance preserved this council, and my life. The Imperium owes you its continuity. She extended a talon, clasping his forearm in the warrior's bond, a gesture rare for off-worlders. Gasps echoed softly. The Kari custom reserved it for proven kin. You will stand at my side for these deliberations. Your testimony on the attacker's form sharpens our blade. Elias inclined his head. Voice, even. An honor, Sovereign. The assailant's disruptor was modded. Non-standard power cell, likely smuggled. I noted the grip ergonomics, Beckery standard, but with human market recoil dampers. He spoke without flourish, as if reciting a routine log, yet the chamber stilled. Varric's frills twitched. Sarah's antennae curled inward. The session ground on, strategies layering like chitin plates, patrol reallocations, informant nets, blockade simulations. Elias contributed sparingly, pointing out patrol blind spots from his vantage, suggesting manifest cross-checks against trade logs he'd glimpsed earlier. Mustari watched him, protocols veneer, thinning where her guards had lumbered into the fray he'd anticipated, adapted, neutralized with improvised binds and leverage no Vekari bolt could match. Humble in execution, yet his mind wove patterns her analysts chased by committee. As projections dimmed for recess, Varric rose, his cohort flanking him like armored specters. Sovereign, a moment of ancient statute. He activated a plinth, archaic glyphs blooming, interdiction of the veiled claw, a dust-eaten law barring off-worlders from violence amid court rites. This human wielded arms, albeit improvised, in sacred address, to placate the hive's unrest, deport him at once. Let purity soothe the fracture. Sarah nodded subtly, her voice honeyed venom, the masses' murmur of desecration. Deportation honors the weave without weakening your guard. Mustari's core heated, indignation coiling. Varric's play was transparent. Stoke the purists, erode the treaty while her back turned. Elias stood unmoving, beside her, expression neutral, but she sensed his quiet readiness, the human resilience that had just saved them. Deport him now and the weave unraveled further. Keep him, and competence trumped relic law. Vetoed, she declared, her voice resonant as forge echoes. Frills fully extended, she rose to full imperial height. Thorn remains for testimony and evidence gathering. The attacker yielded no words before stunners took him. His form, his weapon, details only he can refine under oath. Obscure statutes bend to survival's necessity. Dismiss this, and we invite more blades. Varric's mandibles clicked in protest, but he bowed stiffly, the chamber's air thickening with unspoken volleys. Sayara's gaze sharpened on Elias, reassessing. A junior counselor whispered of soft skin reflexes defying scans. Mustari signaled recess but drew Elias aside into the veiled alcove, security drones humming perimeter. You read the attacker's intent before my elite, she said quietly, propriety cracking into candor. How? He met her eyes, unassuming, patterned the draw. Hesitation in the alcove shadow, barrel gleam. Standard infiltrator tells. Sovereign, anyone would have seen it. But his tone held no boast, only the quiet assurance of one who'd logged 1,000 crises and forgotten outposts. She studied him, the human who'd patched her flagship's failing weave node days prior, now shielding her throne. Contempt's embers cooled. Here was no inferior trinket, but a thread strengthening the whole. Stay vigilant. Storms gather faster now. Elias nodded, a faint smile ghosting. At your side, as sworn. The sanctum's doors sealed behind them, but whispers lingered, factional manifests cracking open. An assassin's secrets poised to spill. Competence once ceremonial now anchored her rule. Their alliance, forged in blood and bolt fire, promised to bind what intrigue sought to sever. Yet Varrik's eyes burned from the shadows. Seyra's web spun finer, and the Imperium's pulse quickened toward trial. Lord Varrikastan's voice sliced through the vaulted chamber like a ceremonial blade, his frilled throat flaps quivering with rehearsed outrage. By the edict of pure lineage, codified in the Third Reckoning, no off-world consort may bind the throne's blood without trial of worth. Elias Thorne stands accused, a liability, his presence the very fracture through which assassins slipped. Queen Mustari Vek sat enthroned at the chamber's apex, her iridescent scales gleaming under the holographic lanterns that mimicked the twin suns of Vakara Prime. The public trial thrummed with the weight of 1,000 eyes. Counselors and tiered benches, envoys from fringe worlds, and hollow broadcast feeds relaying every tremor to the Imperium's core. Her primary hearts beat steady, a disciplined rhythm against the chaos of factional stares. Varric smoldering from the prosecutor's dais, Lady Sarah Knowles poised in the witness gallery, her rival tendrils coiled like waiting vipers. Elias stood beside her dais, human posture unbowed, his dark eyes scanning data slates with that infuriating calm. She had sealed the sanctum mere cycles ago, binding their secrets in blood and code. Now, those secrets spilled into this arena, where law, loyalty, and legitimacy clashed like storm fronts. Mustari's secondary hearts quickened faintly. Protocol demanded she yield to ancient law, yet the alliance with this human had already quelled border raids. To annul it now would unravel her reforms, invite Varric's purity cult to feast on the corpse of her rule. No, she would not fracture first. Varric gestured sharply, summoning a holographic reconstruction. Ghostly figures darting through palace vents, bolt fire erupting in the sanctum. Witness the breach. Human frailty invited this. His guards lax, his customs alien. Invoke the edict, declare him severed. Murmurs rippled, counselors' crests flaring in agreement. Syra's lips curved, a subtle signal to her allies. Mustari's grip tightened on her scepter, the cool crystal grounding her. Elias had prepared for this, his quiet preparations in the sanctum a blur of data weaving she had barely followed. Humans, she had thought, were blunt tools, politically useful, culturally crude. But his endurance through the night, cross-referencing manifests without pause, had hinted otherwise. Rise, Consort Thorne, she commanded, her voice a resonant chime that silenced the chamber. Protocol cracked just enough. She named him consort publicly, defying the annulment's shadow. Present your reconstruction. Elias stepped forward, activating his slate. No flourish, no plea. Just precise taps summoning a web of holograms that bloomed across the chamber floor. Threads of light linked vent schematics to cargo logs, pulsing red at anomalies. A freighter's manifest altered mid-transit, envoy credentials forged with off-world encryption. The assassin didn't act alone, he said, voice even, as if briefing a field team rather than an empire's fate. Logistical trail starts at Border Station Theta 7. 3 envoys. Krellis, from the neighboring Helix, cleared excess cargo under diplomatic seal. But the weights don't match. Official manifests log 2.47 tons of ceremonial silks. Actual scans, pulled from auxiliary buoys, showed 2.91, half a ton unaccounted. Counselors leaned forward, crests flickering in confusion. Varric's frills stiffened. Irrelevant. Human conjecture, Elias multitasked seamlessly, overlaying pattern matches. Bolt signatures from the sanctum synced to black market arms routed through Krellis's helix, not conjecture. Cross-domain links, the vent's access codes match a spyring cipher. Cracked via frequency anomalies in their comms chatter. They anticipated our alliance, aimed to paint it as weakness. But the timing, assault synced to the treaty signing, exposes the foreign hand. Krellis envoys supplied the bolt, the path, the cover. Mustari watched, her gaze sharpening. He juggled it all. Logistics, crypto, ballistics. Like breathing, connecting dots her analysts had chased for cycles. Vakari minds excelled at hierarchical command, rote fortifications. This was improvisational, adaptive, pulling patterns from chaos. A counselor muttered, "Impossible. Our forensic rights take septets." "Human normal," Elias replied humbly, shrugging as if it were rote. "Field engineering, you learn to spot supply chain breaks under fire." Varric snarled, "Lies, fabricated by an outsider to cling to power." But the holograms held, unassailable, threads weaving a noose around the implicated. Gasps echoed. An envoy's crest collapsed in shame. Mustare rose, her presence a gravitational force. The proof stands unrefuted. Sanctions on Helix Krellis, impound their envoys, seize their docks, reopen all border protocols, full manifests, no exemptions. Consort Thorn's analysis secures our flanks. The chamber erupted in crests flaring approval. Reluctant from Varric's faction, she felt a personal tether tighten. Elias's competence wasn't ceremonial anymore. It anchored her throne. Yet pride flickered. She had dismissed humans as endurance freaks, not weavers of such webs. Varric pounded his dais. Even if true, the edict demands annulment. His security invites more peril. Mustari's voice cut like thunder. "I stand for my consort. In crisis, he remains, not as liability, but security advisor. His reforms integrate now. Anomaly sweeps across all protocols." Protocol cracked further. She elevated him publicly, eyes locking with his in shared resolve. He nodded. No arrogance, just quiet partnership. Her heart synced oddly to his steady pulse. Human resilience mirroring her own discipline. Sarah Knoll rose then, her tendrils unfurling with lethal grace. "Your Radiance, the trial permits motions. Under Succession Codex 9th, marital rights devolve to proven claimants during instability. I file for precedence. My helix offers pure blood, untainted logistics. Annul the human, bind with me, secure the line." The chamber hushed, Varric's eyes gleaming alliance. Sarah's ambition burned clear, leveraged the plot to claim the throne's edge, her neighboring power a dagger at Mustari's reforms. Counselors shifted, ancient provisions stirring unrest. Mustari's scales bristled, but her tone remained regal, unyielding. "Motion noted, Lady Knoll. Yet threat persists, spies in our vents. Borders breached." Pulling the emergency statute, holographic text bloomed. "Gilded with antiquity. Statute of active peril. Reckoning 5th. Inherited claims suspend amid existential threat. The alliance stands. Thorn's position holds. Reforms proceed under joint oversight." Sarah's tendrils twitched, frustration cracking her poise. "The threat is fabricated, methodically proven," Mustari countered, gesturing to Elias's web, still pulsing. "Council, ratify." Votes cascaded, holographic tallies tilting her way. Elias's proof tipping the scales, Varric's faction fracturing under evidence. Sarah subsided, webs checked but not severed. As the chamber dispersed, Mustari turned to Elias, voice low amid the echoes. "You wove that in one night. Vekari septets falter where you thrive." He met her gaze, humble. "Just connecting what's there, your radiance. Your protocols gave the framework. My angle filled gaps. No boast, partnership, mutual." She felt the shift. Contempt long eroded. Now respect bloomed, personal and profound. Humans weren't inferior. Their normal defied Vicari limits. Varric lingered at the dais' edge, eyes burning promises of deeper intrigue. Saria's glance promised retaliation. Yet as they exited, Elias at her side, Mustari's Imperium pulsed stronger, alliance not just political, but forged in competence's fire. Whispers of trial victory spread. But shadows lengthened. Loyalty's true test loomed beyond law's arena. Queen Mustari's claws clicked sharply against the polished obsidian floor as she strode from the dais. Elias a steady presence at her flank. A klaxon wailed through the vaulted halls, red emergency lumens pulsing like arterial blood. "Invasion vectors confirmed, Majesty." A breathless adjunct gasped, tablet trembling in his grasp. Frontier outposts breached, coordinated strikes from the Krell Concord, with sabotage flares in the lower citadels. Mustari's frills flared, not in panic, but calculation. Her mind slicing through the chaos. Varric's lingering glare flashed in memory. This reeked of his faction's desperation, amplified by foreign hands. Seal the chambers. Summon the War Council. She turned to Elias, his human face calm amid the uproar, eyes already scanning holographic feeds projected from his wrist cuff. No fear in him. Only focus. Consort, your assessment? Multiple prongs, Elias said, voice level as he flicked through schematics, fingers dancing across alien interfaces he'd mastered in weeks. Krell drop pods hitting supply depots here and here, timed with internal blackouts. They're aiming to isolate the capital, force a surrender before reinforcements mobilize. But their logistics are the throat sever that, and they choke. She nodded once, the weight of empire settling heavier. Humans were enigmas, fragile in form, yet this one parsed battlefields like a native tactician. Lead the counter. Integrate your protocols with Captain Lyra's vanguard. As aides scattered mustery watched Elias pivot into command, his orders crisp over comms. Lyra, hold the eastern ridge, reroute power from secondary grids to your shields. I'll have engineer teams bridging the gaps in 10. Multitasking flowed from him naturally, coordinating Vicari squads while recalibrating human-fabricated drones to jam Krell signals. Her officers blinked at the seamless fusion. Vicari tactics emphasized rigid phalanxes, unyielding as stone, but Elias wove in fluid improvisations, predicting enemy feints from subtle pattern shifts in pod trajectories. By dawn's forge glow, the palace war room hummed with tension. Holomaps flickered, marking red enemy advances clawing toward the heartlands. Mustari stood at the nexus, her presence a lodestone drawing frayed loyalties. Reports flooded in. Saboteurs, Vark's agents no doubt, had poisoned water conduits and triggered micro-explosions in armories. Whispers of human taint rippled among the ranks, but Elias moved among them undeterred. His sleeves rolled back, endurance unflagging as he jury-rigged a command relay from scavenged parts. They're overextended, he murmured to her privately, amid the clamor. Krell rely on hyper-precise supply chains. Fuel drones on a 12-hour cycle. We hit those nexuses with mixed teams. Vicari shocked troops for the breach. Human demo charges for the kill. Mustari's gaze locked on his. Protocol demanded she dictate every maneuver. Yet his insight pierced the fog where her generals faltered. Flaw gnawed at her. Pride in Vicari supremacy, now cracking under necessity. You presume much, Elias Thorne. Only what the data demands, Majesty. Humble, no boast, just quiet certainty. She saw it then. Not arrogance, but the human trait of relentless adaptation, connecting stellar logistics to ground-pound grid in ways her kind rote learned over generations. Elevate him, she commanded the room, voice cutting like a vibroblade. Frills erect, she extended a clawed hand to the central console. Elias Thorne is granted strategic oversight and field command. His directives carry my seal. Defy at peril. Gasps rippled, Lord Varric's allies paling, while loyalists like Lyra straightened with newfound steel. Elias met her eyes, a flicker of surprise yielding to resolve. No gloating. He simply nodded and plunged deeper into the fray, directing a dozen ops simultaneously. Drone swarms, troop redeployments, even psychological broadcasts mimicking Krell retreat signals. The joint operation launched at zenith. Vicari claws and human ingenuity entwined. Mustari monitored from the forward bastion, wind whipping her robes as thunderous booms echoed from the valleys. Elias led the vanguard personally, his form darting amid armored Vicari, barking adjustments. Flank left, pattern shifting. He endured plasma grazes that would fell her warriors, binding wounds mid-stride while plotting the next cut. Krell's supply lines crumbled, fuel depots blooming into fireballs, their vaunted precision shattered by Elias's improvised EMP bursts, crafted from palace emitters and Vicari power cells. Lyra's voice crackled over comms, laced with awe. Thorne's team severed 3 primaries, enemy faltering, praised the Queen's consort. Mustari's chest tightened. Not consort in name alone now, but proven equal. As the Krell armada reeled, withdrawing in disarray, victory holos confirmed. Invasions repelled, saboteurs rounded up, their confessions naming Varric's web in Sarah's covert missives to the Concord. In the victory proclamation broadcast empire-wide from the reclaimed frontier dais, Mustari stood tall. Elias at her right, not behind, but beside, her frills shimmered gold under the suns. The Vicari Imperium endures. Through unity of claw and cunning, we have crushed the serpent at our gates. Elias Thorne, human envoy and consort, devised the strike that saved us. He commands as my partner henceforth, his voice in council, his hand in war. Cheers erupted, Vekari throats rumbling deep. Varric's faction shrank back, Syra's envoys departing with hasty bows. Yet as echoes faded, couriers arrived bearing sealed missives. The High Council chamber loomed in hologram, Lord Varric at its fore, flanked by traditionalists. Majesty, he intoned, voice oily with false deference. Tradition demands purity. The alliance breeds weakness. Sever ties with the off-worlder, or face interdiction. Neighboring powers echo our call. The Concord sues for terms, dangling Sarah Knoll as true successor. Mustari's claws flexed, rage a controlled blaze. Internal spies exposed, military triumph fresh. Leverage gleamed. Elias leaned in, whispering. They bluff. Councils divided. Press the saboteur logs. Tyverik's hands publicly. She silenced him with a glance, then activated her response feed. Counselors, you invoke tradition while treason festers in your ranks. Varric Estan's agents struck with invaders. Proof cascades before you. Documents unfurled and hollow. Confessions, traces linking to Sarah's agents. The human alliance felled our foes where purity failed. I reject your ultimatum. Elias Thorne is ratified as consort and political equal, co-ruler in all but throne. Ratify or dissolve in scandal. Murmurs swelled, then capitulated. Votes tallied green. Varric's face twisted, isolated. Sayara's diplomatic pressure evaporated as Concord envoys conceded defeat. Mustari deactivated the feed, turning to Elias. Propriety cracked fully now. Her hand brushed his shoulder, a Vekari gesture of unyielding trust. You saw patterns we missed, endurance beyond our own. He smiled faintly, wiping depot grime from his brow. Just logistics, Majesty. Your warrior's ferocity made it stick. No pride, only partnership. Her Imperium pulsed anew, not diminished by alien blood but fortified. She was born to rule, and learned that true power was finding an equal. Shadows of deeper intrigues lingered, but for now the alliance stood unbreakable.